All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to our, what month is this? June. I know it's tortoise season, that's all I know. Welcome to our June general meeting. We have a special guest today, Jordan, and I always forget your last name. Swart? Yeah. Jordan Swart from US Geological Survey is going to talk about tortoises, obviously, and the project that we're doing with USGS with hatchlings. And in fact, that's where this little guy is going to go, Cheryl. So quick word about what we're doing as a whole. Tortoise group, we're doing a tortoise survey, a captive tortoise survey. You guys have been coming to the meetings for a couple times. You know what we're doing. What we're doing is we're trying to estimate the, oh my Lord, please turn that off. That beeping?
Oh, it's my watch.
Thank you, Georgie. Okay, have a good day. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to estimate the captive tortoise population. And the reason is because there is no scientific data, and I mean no scientific data, on how many pet tortoises there are in the Mojave. So we're going to start here in Clark County, and we've sent out 50,000 mailers. If you guys get a little envelope from Tortoise Group, please fill it out. The odds of you getting are pretty slim. There's 200, I think 300,000, well, I don't know. Say about 10% of the population should receive something. So maybe you guys might get a survey. If you get one, please fill it out and turn it back in to us. We're going to take that data. We're partnering with UNLV, and they're going to compile the data that we have in terms of registered tortoises, and they're going to compile whatever results we get from this survey. Having said that, is there anybody here that has a desert tortoise that has not registered it yet? All right, so Meshin should be. You don't know? Did you adopt it after 2015?
No.
Okay, so if you, Cheryl, I know yours are not registered unless you registered them. Did I do, oh, we gave you a tortoise. Oh, that's different. If you,
The one that was maybe I had on
that one you need to register. So go online. Okay, so here's the deal. Even if you have an even question about it, register your tortoise. It's free, it's simple, and if you want, it's anonymous as well. You could do it regularly, which is put your demographic information in. We're not going to do anything with your data, and we're not going to turn it over to any other agency. All I do is I take the zip code and the number of tortoises in the zip code. So when we do the anonymous registration, if you prefer to do that, you just put in your zip code and the number of tortoises you have, and then like a 20-digit code will be shot back at you. We have that 20-digit code so that if for some reason law enforcement, which I couldn't see that happening, but if somebody came to you and said, hey, is your tortoise legal? You can show that 20-digit combination, and I have the backup for that 20-digit combination. Does everybody understand that? So registration is pretty important. Yes, ma'am? No, your registration number is not on your certificate, but if you have an adoption certificate, more likely than not, your tortoise is registered. Did you register it after 20, or did you adopt? What's that?
Just recently.
Okay, then you're registered, you're good. Anybody that adopted after 2015, your tortoise is registered, but if you've had your tortoise for a while, please register your tortoise. It's extremely important. Yes, ma'am? Mm-hmm. I would redo it, Georgie. There's not a problem with duplicates. That's what I'm saying. If you have a question, just register, because what's going to happen is your tortoise has, however you have, is either the microchip number, your phone number. There's different ways that we have to track it. So if it's got a microchip on it, when you re-register it, boom, it's going to show up as the same tortoise anyway. So yeah, creating a duplicate is not a bad thing. Anybody else got any questions on registration? Very, very important that you register your desert tortoise. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and then we can get into Jordan's piece.
Thank you, Kobe. So just a brief overview of what we'll be discussing today. We're going to breeze through current events, upcoming events on how you guys can get involved, and then seasonal behavior we'll touch on, and then I'm going to pass it over to Jordan, and he's going to give his presentation. So just this past weekend, Amanda was out with a couple volunteers at an outreach event called Fiesta Mundial, a World Cup event, and it was very busy, and they talked to thousands of people, which is awesome. And you can see these extravagant outfits that two girls took a picture with a tortoise, which is pretty cool. And another dig up at our habitat, so thank you volunteers that have come out for the third or fourth time to help us redo those burrows for those tortoises out at our habitat. We are eternally grateful, and our volunteers that are out there on a regular basis, like Cheryl, we can't run this operation without you folks, so we really appreciate all of your help.
Did we get rid of the ticks?
Not quite. No, the ticks are still there, but they seem to be at least a little bit under control rather than at the beginning of the season. So right now we're at 39 adoptions in Southern Nevada, which is awesome. We're right on track. And in Northern Nevada, we're up to 15. So Kim's been working away, reaching out to people in Reno and Sparks and the Northern Nevada community. And our upcoming events, we have our health assessment and microchipping clinic coming up on Saturday. So if you have your Saturday open and you'd like to come help out, we'd greatly appreciate it. And you can come see me after the meeting. Saturday at Jones Feed and Tack on Rancho and Lone Mountain. Volunteers are asked to show up at 9 and it will go to about 2. We're usually pretty quick about cleaning up, but I usually will say 9 to 3 for volunteers. We also have some awesome wild desert tortoise conservation volunteer opportunities restarting this year, which Jordan will go into more details about how you can get involved with the USGS Head Starting program and how you can help. And then we'll go over details of scheduling as far as that goes. We also finally have created a schedule for Tortoise Telemetry. I know I've heard a lot of anxious volunteers have been coming up to me almost every meeting saying, when are we starting this? This week, finally. So this week we're actually going to be going out, Jason Jones and Kevin with BLM, Jason Jones with Nevada Department of Wildlife and Kevin with Bureau Land Management are gonna be going out all of these days this week. So if you're available and you feel like waking up really early in the morning or possibly coming out in the evening, we have to be out there when tortoises are active. And if you want to come help track tortoises out at Red Rock, we would love to have you. And I'll actually be out there Monday and Tuesday as well. So summer behavior. I've got a couple questions from folks that have come in and they say that their tortoise is behaving a little peculiar, but they're not. It's getting hot outside and they don't want to be outside either. So they're spending a lot more time in their burrows. We're typically seeing them earlier in the morning and in the evening. Just like when we go out to track them, we're waking up super early in the morning to find those guys, or going out in the evening when it's cooled down a little bit. And even out at our habitat, our start time has increased to 7 a.m. for the volunteers to come out to our habitat to feed. So they can go into periods called estivation. And estivation is a way for tortoises to conserve their energy. So it's really hot. It costs them a lot more energy to come out of their burrow and browse and graze around than it does just for them to remain active. So they just hang out in the coolness of their burrow and they just chill out and wait for the heat to pass. So sometimes they can spend a couple days to even a couple weeks inside their burrow. What's the longest amount of time someone's tortoise has stayed in during the heat of the summer?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? We've got 3 weeks, so it can be pretty impressive. I know you guys are missing them when they're away for that long, but they know what they're doing.
Sarah, what is their vision like at night?
That I do not know.
Because mine come out in the middle of the night sometimes. And I don't know if they can see.
It's pretty good. I think Todd is a better authority into this than I.
Everyone's pointing the finger at somebody else. What do you know?
It gets too hot in the ground because the surface heats up, super hot. You don't want your dog walking on the ground in the middle of summer. And so when the heat sinks down into the ground and it forces them out of the burrows,
And this was seen with bolson tortoises down in Chihuahua in Mexico. I think that was where the first observations were. And then when we started doing more field work and being out, 3 in the morning and stuff, working on different things with tortoises, we started finding animals out too. So the wild ones do it too. So it's the way you live when you're in the desert. Come out when it's cool. Or get forced out.
Good question. So as I had mentioned, it conserves energy and it just costs them more energy to come out. So they just remain down and then they can come out at night and, for the tortoise nightlife, obviously, out in the desert. Yeah. They're heading over to Hakkasan to go clubbing. So warm tortoise temperatures. So temperatures that you need to be concerned about when you do see your tortoise out and about. This is what's abnormal. Dangerous temperatures are 103 degrees to 113 degrees. Those are temperatures you can see your tortoise overheating at. So that would be an area of concern. If your tortoise is out and about, something's going abnormal. If you don't want to be outside, your tortoise typically doesn't want to be outside either. So signs of overheating, you can see them aggressively struggling to dig or get out. Sometimes they're foaming at the mouth or overly salivating. Voiding their bladder is another common occurrence when they're overheating. And now I'll be passing it over to Jordan, and I'm really excited to hear what we have to hear about the Head Starting program.
All right, hello. My name is Jordan. I'm with the USGS. I'm the captive herd manager out here in Las Vegas Valley. And so today I'm going to talk to you about our Head Starting volunteer opportunities and just a little bit about our background and history with them. So just a little background information. So I'm going to kind of talk about a little translocation area first. So this blue area here in the outline, that's what is the translocation area. And one more. And so this kind of orangish red color is like the burned area. So back in 2005, we had a lot of wildfires and lightning strikes that kind of hit southern Nevada. And so when those wildfires hit, roughly 27%, or about 35 square kilometers, of that blue area burned, which equals like close to like 7,000 football fields worth, just to give you a sense of scale. And we saw that the fire intensity was really highly variable. If it was patchy, there was areas that were left unburned, and there was a lot of areas that were burned. So if we go to the next picture. So this is one photo from those June 2005 fires as it's going across the landscape. And it's hitting it pretty good. And so if we go to the next one. So I took this photo of June of 2017. And it looks pretty much exactly the same, this past month. So you see in this kind of foreground here, these are all Joshua tree like trunks. So this used to be a pretty good Joshua tree, almost forest, as you could say. And then all these twigs here are all like dead and burned creosote. And you can see how even 12 and 13 years later, this burned landscape is still hardly recovering. But you see a lot of all this little stuff that's coming up. So all that is like brome and schismus. So that's all invasive grasses that are taking over the landscape. If we click one more. But here are those pockets I was talking about earlier, where those pockets were left unburned. And so that whole valley was kind of littered with pockets were unburned and pretty good habitat. All right, one more. And so One more. And then, so following that burn, well, we tried some restoration efforts. So in 2006, we did a lot of seeding, like hand seeding and helicopter seeding, and we tried a lot to get the desert back to where it once was. But we found out that it's really, really hard to do, and the desert is really hard for it to naturally come back to the way it was. So we found like resprouting of those dominant shrubs is really rare, like our creosote, our ambrosia, and all those other plants. Those are really hard to get back. One more. And so you're probably wondering, well, how does a wildfire from 2005, how does that affect, a captive herd here in the Las Vegas Valley? Well, there's still a lot we don't really know about tortoises, and especially juvenile tortoises. A couple more, please. So we know that there has been a large increase in wildfires since the 1980s. So there's a bad cycle. So we'll have a wildfire, like a lightning strike or a man-made fire, it gets out of control and it burns the desert. So that wipes out your native plant communities. Well, then once those are gone, your brome, your schismus come in and invade. And once they grow and they get dry, they're kind of like tinder, and they light up just like that. And so when they get light up, it just kind of repeats that process over and over again. So it's really hard for native plants to get back. And desert plants don't respond well to fire. This isn't like a prairie or certain forest ecosystems that actually rely on fire to kind of clean house every once in a while. Desert plants can't really keep up with that. So it's really detrimental to the health of the plant community. And we know that juveniles are just different from the adults in the way in what they eat and how often they eat, when they come out during the types of day or even types of the year, and what cover they even hide under. Like a lot of the juveniles will hide in little rat dens or something like that, compared to the adults which will dig their own. So there's a lot of unknowns with juvenile tortoises, and we're trying to figure out, well, if we want a healthy population on a burned landscape, well, how do we get a population that can actually live out there? So our main question is, well, how do juvenile tortoises respond to a restored habitat? And so that is the main question of our huge experiment that's finally going to get started this fall. Hopefully no more delays due to bad weather. And so this is what we're going to do. So we're going to translocate 60 juvenile tortoises to that same area I was talking about before, to 3 different release sites. So, clicking please. So we're going to have seeded burned habitat here. I think a lot of you guys probably helped out with actually seeding some of these sites. We grew a lot of plants in the nursery or in the greenhouse. So I think a lot of people actually here helped out plant out there too. So even then you're helping out with our experiment 1. And then we're going to do 20 tortoises to unseeded burned habitat, and another 20 tortoises to unburned habitat. So we're doing these 3 so we can compare the differences in the tortoises and how they're doing at each different site. That way we can measure if our restoration practices are actually working. So if we keep going, this is how we're going to measure that. So we're going to translocate our 60. So we're going to document the tortoise growth and their behavior, health and survival, and we're going to monitor them weekly. So we're going to attach these little tiny transmitters that weigh about 3.5, 4 grams, and we'll attach them right under the carapace, and we use that to track where they're going. And once we track them, we're going to figure out what they're eating and how often they're eating that plant at those different sites to see if there's a different selection for what's available. And then we're going to perform our health assessments. So health assessments can include a lot of different things. We'll probably take blood samples and fecal samples and oral swabs, and we're going to use a whole variety of tools to figure out how well our tortoises are doing on the landscape. So this is where Tortoise Group kind of comes in, helps us with our head starting program. So you can see in the background we have volunteers from last year that are helping us out. They're kind of keeping track and seeing which tortoises are on the surface. So yeah, so now we need your help now. So we have 145 tortoises right now, captive guys, and I think that guy makes 146. So we keep getting them almost it seems like every week. So we get a lot of them. So we need your help to help take care of these guys. So if you're interested in volunteering and helping us out at this event, we're thinking about doing this Mondays and Fridays. We're going to try and stick to Mondays and Fridays pretty good, but that can change. We have a lot of different field projects going on, and so those days might change, but we'll try and give Sarah a good heads up if that will change or not. And we're going to be at the Great Basin parking lot at 7 a.m. And I'll show you in a little bit where exactly that's located. We'll probably try to stick to that 7 a.m. time, maybe 6:30 or so, but we'll try and stick to that. depending on the weather. And we're asking for about 2 to 3 volunteers each day. So it doesn't have to be the same 2 or 3 volunteers like for the rest of the year. Like if you can only come out once over the next couple months, that's fine. If you come out 10 times, that's perfect too. So whatever works in your schedule. And we're thinking work will probably take about 2 hours or so. I don't think it'll take much longer than that. And so these are some of the things we'll do. So yeah, you can see these guys, they love that tortoise chow that we feed them. They literally climb over each other to get to it. So they love it. They scrape the bowl, they lick it clean basically. So
Do they get the same stuff we get?
we feed them a slightly different, our vet recommended a Missouri diet. It's called Missouri instead of your grassland. So the grassland is really good for like adult tortoises, but he recommends Missouri diet for our little juveniles. So that guy will probably eventually get the Missouri diet like this. Plus a mix with some annual plants too. And we'll water their plants and record tortoise observations that we have in the background. We'll also do things like pen maintenance, like trimming the plants up. Sometimes they get overgrown. Record any pest observations, like heard you guys are dealing with ticks. Like we have some ticks too, so we have to try and just keep that under control. And then assisting the biologists out there, like performing health assessments with us or recording or kind of things like that. Oh, you're good. All right, so biosecurity is kind of the main, most important part of our project here. So if you're not really familiar with biosecurity, it's kind of a weird term. So biosecurity means we just don't want to bring any outside disease or pathogen into our torts, and we don't want to spread anything that our current torts have to another tort. So it basically just means just keeping it clean. So we're going to disinfect our shoes before we enter the cages. So we use this product called Trifectant right here. So this is what a lot of vets use. They use that if you bring your dog to the vet, and then next visit they'll just spray that all down. And it pretty much kills everything really good. So it's really effective stuff. So we'll just spray that at the bottoms of our shoes just to make sure we don't bring anything in. And then we'll always wear gloves when we're working in pens. If you click one more. So you always see whenever we're handling tortoises, we're always wearing latex or like nitrile gloves. So that we just don't want to risk anything from us spraying anything to another tortoise. So always wear gloves. And after we're done handling our torts, we'll always change gloves after we're done working with them. And we never want to step into pens. A, you don't want to step on a little one. And B, you don't want to like step in the pen and maybe a tick will jump on your shoe, or you step in some feces and you step into another pen, you can just carry it over. So just stay safe and just kind of stay out of those pens. Oh yeah, and no food allowed near the pens. Does anybody know what this guy is? Yeah, this guy is a fat and happy pack rat. So I found him, he was chewing on some of the extra tortoise food. And so just make sure you don't bring any of your own personal food in, because these guys won't harm the torts, but we just don't want them in the pens. So just better for them to stay outside. Yeah, he's pretty cute, yeah, I'll give you that. But for a rat. Yeah, for a rat, yeah.
Cuter than my tree rat.
All right, so just kind of reiterate this biosecurity protocol. So this is the order we'll do things. So when you first get there, we'll all just disinfect our shoes before we go into the cages. And then we'll put on a pair of gloves. Let me know, me or Sarah know, if you have any latex allergy. I'll make sure to bring the nitrile gloves in your size. So just let me know ahead of time. So for example, say you're working in this pen and you're fixing something in their water dish or trimming plants or something, and you notice that there's something going wrong in that pen. So before you go work in this pen, just take a step back, take your gloves off, throw them away, come over here, grab a new set of gloves, and then start working in there. And once you're done in that set, just take off those old gloves and throw them away. So if you have any doubt on what you should do, always just change your gloves. We have 1 billion gloves that you can go through, so they're cheap and they're easy. It's better for us to go through gloves than to get any of our tortoises sick. All right, so kind of give you an idea of where we have our tortoises located. So we're up here, Springs Reserve now, and our tortoises are located way down here. So keep going one more. We'll keep zooming in on that area. So you can see blue diamonds running way up top, east-west. Here's Cactus, and here's Rainbow Boulevard. So if you follow to the end of the rainbow, you won't find a pile of gold, but you'll find the Tortoise Center driveway and how to get in here. So if we keep zooming in on that area, yeah. So this is your Tortoise Center driveway. So it's a really long gravel road. Yeah, it's very well marked with really nothing. If you see there's a really tiny sign right here that says DTCC. So that's from the Desert Tortoise Conservation Center. So, all right. Yeah. So then you go down this really long gravel driveway. Most cars can make it. I think like low clearance cars like a Prius should have no problem going down the road. Just make sure when you're driving, go slow because there are a lot of torts that live around here and they'll see them every once in a while crossing that road. So once you go down that long gravel road, you'll turn in and then there's another gate right here you'll pass and you'll turn in and park right here. So this building, we'll go back one more please. So this building is the Great Basin Institute. That's their field office. And so there's always people coming and going there. So we'll try to stay out of their way, but we can use their facility if we need to, but we'll try to stay out of their hair. And then up here is where we built our new tortoise pens. So this past winter and spring, I was pretty busy. So basically we had to double our capacity because last winter we were pretty much overflowing with tortoises. We had so many. So basically had a huge recycling event and reused a bunch of material from a bunch of other projects, and we basically doubled our tortoise carrying capacity. So this is where we're going to be working. All of our volunteers will work in these pens, and this is where we have all of our tortoises now, which is a little different from if you helped out last year. There's a couple other pens, but we'll only work in these pens this time. So just a couple reminders as we're kind of wrapping up here. Please don't go into the pens before we do. We just want to make sure everybody's cleaned up first and shoes are disinfected. This is more for the people that have tortoises at home. If you have like a separate pair of tennis shoes or something, kind of keep that aside so your one pet tortoise or that you're taking care of doesn't kind of crawl over them. So we just want to make sure there's always a separation. We don't want them, get them dirty. And I recommend bringing a hat, water, and sunscreen. It gets pretty toasty pretty quick out there. And then a few more. Please don't handle the tortoises unless we give the okay. I know they're really cute and you really want to hold them, but they are research animals, so we try to minimize the amount of handling we have on those guys. So it is okay every once in a while, but just make sure you get the okay from one of us that are out there. And please don't bring guests that we don't know about. So if you have like a niece or nephew or like grandchild or a child that's like really interested in this type of stuff and really would like to come out, they can come out, but make sure to tell like Sarah and I beforehand. We just don't want to have like, we're expecting 2 people and then like 2 families show up and I'm like, I don't know how to make sure keep you guys all busy. But if you know, let me know ahead of time, that's fine with me. And then please don't visit the pens outside your scheduled volunteer time. So like I said, the Great Basin Institute is out there and there are people that actually live outside all year round. And so they've had problems with people like breaking in and like vandalizing or dumping garbage outside their buildings. And so they have the gates always locked, and if they see people that aren't supposed to be out there, they won't hesitate to call the authorities. And so if you don't want to visit from Las Vegas's finest, I'd say just stay, just only come when you're out with us. That's pretty much a quick orientation for this. If you have any questions directly related to the orientation, feel free to ask, or Todd and I can answer your questions. Yeah.
When you take blood samples,
Yeah.
they don't have very much blood in the first place, so how much are you going to be taking?
We take very small amounts, so it's like we take 0.1 or 2 milliliters. So it's like a teardrop almost. It's not very much, teardrop or 2. So it's from these little guys, we don't take very much at all. This guy, I don't know, he's probably maybe 2, a year or 2, depending on his growth rings. Yeah.
In the burnt areas
Yeah.
where the brome and the other one has, are you concerned about these little ones eating that? And
Yeah, so that is a definite possibility of our, when we release our guys out there. So we have to see if they will actively select and eat brome, or if they'll try and find something else if it's available. So that's part of the study, to see what they're gonna eat out there. We hope they don't, but if there's nothing else out there, they might resort to eating it.
So the volunteers that you need are gonna work in these pens, not out of the 3?
Yeah, just in these pens for now, yep. Maybe later in the year, there might be a possibility, if you guys are interested in tracking of those little juveniles, that might be a possibility.
You're putting 60 out of those 3 areas?
60 total. Yep.
And then you're gonna chip them, or do a little?
Yeah, we'll put a little radio transmitter on
And
it.
at some point, you're gonna track them, is that?
Yeah, after we release them, we're gonna track them like every single day for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's gonna go every other day, and then like once a week or so, to kind of, as the temperatures cool down, they'll probably be a little less active, and then they'll finally settle down.
So while they're in these pens, what are you looking for?
So we're just making sure they stay healthy enough for translocation, and make sure if any of these guys show any sign of disease, we want to make sure that, because we do not want to put any disease on the landscape. If we can control it here, we don't want it out there. So that's what we're kind of making sure.
So this is sort of the farm team for the translocation?
Yep.
You have more than 60?
Yeah, we have more than 60, so we have 84 that are actually big enough we can translocate, but we'll choose like the top 60. We don't really, it doesn't matter how old they are, just how much they weigh is the biggest part. So yeah, the size is the biggest determination, because we can have torts that are maybe 6 years old, but they might only be, about that size. It all depends on their diet when they were younger and how well they're doing. So, yeah.
Now, with this new coming up, you said you needed volunteers to go out in the mornings for night times. When are they?
Pardon?
Now, what do
That's
they need?
Tortoise Telemetry.
That's for a different
Oh,
project.
yeah, I think that's in Red Rock with, and then with
With
Jason Jones. Yeah, that's his project. I'm not too sure about that. So you have to ask Sarah about that.
Talk to me after the meeting.
You need a magnifying glass to check for ticks.
I wish I brought this one picture. It's really gross, because I found one of our tortoises with a tick, which was like the size of its head. It was attached right on the top. Yeah, it was gross. I wish I had it with, but some of them are, yeah, they're like tiny, really tiny. So you have to like really look. Like I do bring a little magnifying glass and look in the sutures, because they're like size of like a period on a piece of paper, and they hide really well. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
So if after however many weeks or months, if all of a sudden you're doing the tracking and it turns out that, in a given site, 10 of the 20 have died,
Yeah.
are you gonna go and get the other 10 or?
I don't think so. Once they're out there, they're out there. Right, Todd? Yep. Because other places have done similar studies to that, and then they've kind of found somewhat similar results, but we're doing ours in a little different way, so we're hoping like they're not all gonna die right away. But the reality is, with juvenile tortoises on the landscape, most of them do die. If you have 100 eggs are laid, only 1 or 2 of those are gonna make it to adulthood. So they have a very low survival rate. So it's just kind of the reality. It's sad, but it's what it is.
Do they have a large percentage they lost during those fires? Or did anybody do a count on lost tortoises?
They didn't have a good number, good estimate beforehand of how many tortoises were out there, but they did survey it afterwards, and they did find a lot of tortoises that did actually have like damage from the fire on them, so they know they are actually in the burned area because they could see it on their carapace. I don't know what the estimates were beforehand, but there was still a fairly good population afterwards that they found.
We would see, there were 5 different fires in the past that we studied.
There was 5 different fires, similar to what we had up in Vegas, but we did this back in the early 2000s in Sonoran Desert and Mojave Desert, and we had from 12 to 24% mortality of the tortoises that we could find out there after the fire. So that's not good. That's usually, yes, they would, but the tortoises they didn't evolve with fire, so they're walking around, because I've been in where the fires are burning as a resource advisor with BLM and looking at what's going on, and there's tortoises walking around right all through the fire. And the problem is when they go hide in a bunch of grass. That's not good. Yeah, but in a burrow they'd probably be fine most of the time, because our fires are so quick. It passes very quickly. It can be quite hot, But where it gets really hot is like around the base of the creosote bush and things like that, where the fire remains and stays there.
Now, these sites gonna be fenced off, so one group doesn't go into another group?
Nope, they won't. They'll probably be a fairly good distance away, and we'll keep track in our database, like which ones we're putting in which, area. They might cross over, but we found that the juveniles don't really have that big of a home range yet, but if they get bigger, they could definitely move into that area.
And you'll know by the chip.
Yep, and we'll know by the chip. Man, we put a little identification tags on them, so we know who is who and where they're going. Yeah.
I had a friend who was raising tortoises, and I took 18 of them away from him over the course of 6 years. And I successfully raised all 18 to 3 years of age or older, and then COVID came, got them.
Kelly. Yeah.
No, I
You asked me to.
him.
You asked me.
Yeah, whose side of the story here?
I asked him to come get him because it was getting really hard to find enough weeds and stuff to supplement the diet.
Mhm.
I was like going out, pulling out my garden, trying to feed.
Yeah,
And I really didn't want 18. I didn't want.
that's a lot, yeah,
I didn't want him to get run over.
yeah.
And I didn't want him to get, well, he was running him over with his lawnmower.
Ooh, yeah, that's tough. Yeah.
You wouldn't check the grass, he'd just go, oh, you go, oh.
Yeah.
Another one.
Oof, that's bad. Oof. Well, good thing Kobe grabbed him.
I did 18
Yeah.
without losing one.
That's really good, wow, that's very impressive, yeah.
How long is this project going to last?
A couple of years, I think we got it at least for 3 to 5, so at least that long. Hopefully we'll get some more funding and we'll keep it going for a very long time. Yeah, it's all about the money, so we'll see. Hopefully we'll get that funding.
After this particular program, the ones that you have that you're feeding, are you going to re-release more, like next year?
Yeah, that'll be part of experiment 2. So we're gonna release another 40 after that. So it kind of goes in waves. So we don't have enough to do everything right now, so we'll wait, probably next year, maybe the year after, we'll release the next 40 in similar style.
When do you want the volunteers to start?
Oh, good question. We can actually start on Monday, this coming Monday, if there's people that are interested, or on Friday too, or this upcoming Friday. So probably just talk to Sarah afterwards, and yeah, if we got people, yeah, you can come on out. If there's any other questions? All right, if you have any other questions, you can just find me afterwards, me or Todd, and we can answer them. So thank you.
Just
Oh,
one last
yeah.
question. Where do you get your funding from?
That's a Todd question. Yeah, that's a.
We have funding from, our mission with USGS is to provide science and information to the interior agencies, the U.S. Department of Interior. So that's like the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Reclamation, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so, but we're not limited to that. So I've been in the business a long time, so we have also the Department of Defense has us come and work on projects for them. So like Fort Irwin and the Navy or China Lake. And then Clark County, we work with Clark County. We're doing experiments in Clark County to understand things about coyotes and their relationship with tortoises and jackrabbits. And even private industry occasionally will work out some kind of a situation where they've got a project, and so as mitigation, they do some conservation research with us, and so we can learn something in exchange for when they use public lands to do a project or something like that. But that's a tricky thing. Probably we can talk later about that. There's a funny thing about that. Yeah. Money can be gifted, and that's a funny thing because then they can't take any of the overhead out of it. And so they didn't even, nobody does that really, hardly, but they told me that once when I complained about the overhead a lot with the people above me, I kept saying, well, how many light bulbs do you need? 50% is a lot, and sometimes they do that. And so the guy said, well, if you can get it gifted, then there's no overhead. He didn't think I could do that, but I did. That's the best situation, but there's no contract, it's just do good things. And so, like other organizations, but usually people don't gift to the government.
Right.
That's unusual.
So then who funds this individual study?
The BLM Nevada.
The BLM is funding.
Yes, and USGS, yeah, so they pay my salary, just to keep the things going, and then, yeah, so that's taxpayers' money, yeah.
Right.
But it's significantly cheaper when you have citizen scientists and volunteers.
Absolutely,
right?
some of these projects, the only way we can do it is
Yeah.
to work with, and we've gone that direction because the budgets are shrinking, and so we want to still learn good things. And we're doing the same thing with, across the entire desert, we're trying to set up a project to study Joshua trees with working with citizen scientists. There's a group in Meadview, Arizona working, and there's a group going to work down in Southern Clark County near Searchlight that's going to work out of there and do our Joshua trees, some of our Joshua trees in Nevada, work on them. And then there's California Native Plant Society is organizing with us to do a class this fall to start studying, pinning down really what's going on with Joshua trees. So, yeah, same deal, same as with our group here with Tortoise Group.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. And correct me if I'm wrong, but all of the tortoises the cohort that you guys are going to release this summer came from us, right?
I think so.
2016, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been doing this since 2016, and I've got 3 tortoises in my kitchen right now. Okay, we're going to change gears real quickly. I want to talk about somebody that you guys all know, Sarah Mortimer. So here's the deal. You're looking at Tortoise Group employees here. It's me, Sarah, and Amanda. And we have a whole bunch of awesome volunteers that help us do stuff. There's only so many times you could say, good job. So Sarah, come on up. I'm going to embarrass the heck out of you. Right, and we have some board members. If Kirsten, Laura, and Charlie, if you guys would come up too. We're going to present Sarah with something because you can only say good job so many times, but have it very meaningful. So I want you guys to understand one thing, that one of Sarah's job functions is to coordinate with biologists. Sarah is a biologist. Her stated mission goal within her job was to become an expert in the field of captive tortoise care. And I think that she has done that. And do we have the little plaque? So we're gonna give Sarah a plaque here and make her very embarrassed. And Amanda, if you would go to the next slide. And as we're doing this, I want to show some quick quotes from folks. So this is Tony Munoz. In fact, he kind of started this. He's a new tortoise custodian. This is Tony's comment. He says, "I'd also like to inform you and your board." Now, this is just a dude. He contacted me out of the clear blue sky. Sarah did an awesome job in helping Hulk, their tortoise, and help us transition to a new home. I highly recommend she be recognized in a distinguished manner in front of her leaders and peers, if possible. Next slide. Oh, you're not done. You're not done. Now, the whole point of this is that there's nice feelings, but then there's also professional acumen, and I think Sarah's shown this above and beyond. So this is from Nevada Department of Wildlife. This is Joe Barnes. He's their supervising, supervising biologist for state of Nevada. Sarah's been great to work with. I'm going to read this out loud, Sarah. Work with, and it's been a huge asset to desert tortoise conservation efforts. I really appreciate her positive attitude and solid organization skills when it comes to captive tortoise issues, including placement of tortoises needing new homes, organization and facilitation of various clinics, and her efforts to help with the joint NDOW-BLM project tracking tortoises in Red Rock Canyon. That's the one that starts, I believe you had the question, starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's the project that we're working on here. Please send Sarah, Nevada Department of Wildlife, sincere thank you for a job well done, and our pleasure to keep working with her in the future. Thank you for helping to carry the torch for desert tortoise conservation. We're not done. So, here's another one from USGS. In fact, the gentleman is sitting right here. Renowned expert in desert tortoises, by the way. The USGS Desert Tortoise Research Team has partnered with Sarah since she first arrived at Tortoise Group. Sarah is a trusted spokesperson for desert tortoise care and conservation. She provides essential information to people for the well-being of the captive tortoise population and conveys a clear message about technical aspects of how our activities affect wild tortoises. In this way, Sarah is a bridge between the scientific community and tortoise custodians throughout the region. We're so glad Sarah is our partner in conservation and value her contribution greatly. Couldn't say it better myself. That's awesome. And then finally, U.S. Fish and Wildlife had a comment very similar as well. She's a brilliant, talented biologist who's demonstrated immense dedication to the care of captive tortoises and wild tortoise conservation. I've observed her, yep, that was that crazy summer. Tirelessly working long hours in the heat while keeping her sense of humor and professionalism. She's deeply committed to the mission, often providing direct care for sick or injured tortoises. I can rely on Sarah to help, to assist Fish and Wildlife, DTRO, with our mission to conserve and protect this federally listed species. I'm honored to know and work along with a biologist of her caliber and look forward to continued success in tortoise conservation. So, having said all that, as your boss, I'm very pleased with your work. As one of your mentors, I couldn't be more proud of you. Congratulations. She's too modest. Okay, yes.
She's ours. Yeah. Hands off.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Anybody got a tortoise that got adopted from Sarah? Let me raise your hand. And Sarah did an awesome job, right? Yeah.
No?
Okay, if you guys have any questions about the volunteer opportunities, please see either me, Sarah, or Jordan. And if you have any other questions, please ask them now. And if you want to say good job to Sarah, please do, because she's awesome.